What's up, y'all? It's GC Kinsey, here to compare and analyze how my voice sounded singing My Immortal by Evanescence before and after testosterone. My Immortal has been one of my favorite songs since it first came out back when I was in high school, and yes, I am dating myself here. I learned it on the piano back then, and I would play and sing it all the time, so naturally I had to record a cover art for this channel, right? Which I finally decided to do at 2 years and 10 months on T. But when I was setting up in the studio, I thought I could have sworn I also recorded this before I started T. So I went digging through my backup hard drive for that recording, and lo and behold, I actually found it. Why I never posted it, I couldn't tell you. My best guess is because I recorded it about a week before I got my tonsils out, and I probably just forgot about it in the haze of recovery. But once I'd unearthed it again, I thought, well, I've got to post it now. It's like the specter of my old voice rising from the dead to haunt my channel again. Very fitting for this particular song. And of course, finding the old recording meant I could use the same backing track for the new one, just pitched down to a lower key. So that's what I did. I changed the key from A to D sharp, got in front of the mic, and laid down a cover in my new and improved tenor range. And it was such an emotional and affirming experience. As much as I loved singing this song pre-T, it was never easy because the highest notes sat right around that spot where my voice would break over from chest into head. But singing it on T felt more natural than it ever had before, like that was how it was always supposed to feel. So now I want to take y'all through these recordings and talk about what's different. We're going to start with the pre-T version.
I'm so tired of being here, suppressed by all my childish fears. And if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave, 'cause your presence still lingers here, and it won't leave me alone. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase.
Alright, I'm going to stop it right there before we get into the chorus. And the first big observation I have is how soft and airy a lot of this is. That wasn't a sound I particularly enjoyed making for dysphoria reasons, but when the song called for it, I would do it. And I think it was pretty effective here. That airiness or breathiness comes through from the very first line.
I'm so tired of being here.
And continues through here.
And if you have to leave,
And then finally starts to build toward more of a full voiced sound here as we lead into the chorus.
'cause your presence still lingers here, and it won't leave me alone.
I pulled back again some on this line.
These wounds won't seem to heal.
And the word heal in particular goes very breathy again.
To heal.
Then I built back up to that fuller sound again on the next line, especially on the words too real.
This pain is just too real.
That's where I not only went all the way into that full voiced sound, but also increased my volume into a crescendo as I led into the chorus.
There's just too much that time cannot erase.
And I'll note that I'm actually in mixed voice here, pulling chest up into my head voice rather than just singing in pure chest. That was different from how I used to sing this song in high school and college with nothing but chest voice all the way. As dysphoric as the sound of my head voice and mixed voice made me feel, I had tried to start using it a little bit more by this point just for more variety of sound. And I think it worked out well for this song. One other thing I want to point out about this first verse is how I used vocal fry in a couple of places for effect. Here on the word suppressed,
Suppressed by all my.
and here on the word I.
I wish that you would just leave.
That choice helped add some depth and texture to the vocal delivery, which otherwise consisted of mostly smooth, pretty singing. Okay, let's listen to that same verse after 2 years and 10 months on T. I'm so tired of being here, suppressed by all my childish fears. And if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave, 'cause your presence still lingers here, and it won't leave me alone. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. Yay, it finally sounds like me instead of a different person. So aside from the obvious pitch change, there are some interesting similarities and differences between the pre-T and the post-T versions that I want to point out here. First is how we have a similar build-up from softer, airier singing to louder, more full voice singing, but the way it's executed is completely different. In this version, that airiness or breathiness is not only less pronounced, it's also really only there on the first line. I'm so tired of being here, suppressed by all my childish fears. By the time we get to childish fears, that airiness is gone and we're already in a full voice sound, whereas that didn't happen until later in the pre-T version right here.
And it won't leave me alone.
So in the post-T version, I relied less on going from an airy sound to more of a full sound for that build up to the chorus, and more on an increase in volume and intensity in the vocal delivery. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. There's even a tiny hint of rasp on that last and loudest phrase, time cannot erase, which highlights that emotional intensity in contrast to how smooth the rest of the vocal sound was. I didn't use any fry in this version like I did in the pre-T version. What I did instead was I went for a smooth, clear vocal sound with a nice warm tone. I let the sound resonate and really ring right here in the mask, and I tried to infuse as much yearning into my delivery of that sound as possible. So basically, instead of using different vocal textures to help convey emotion like I did in the pre-T version, in this version I kept the vocal more simple and just let the pure emotion shine through. Okay, let's go into the chorus now, first with the pre-T version.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years that you still have. All of me.
Alright, so I'm starting out in that same mixed voice that I was using in the lead up to the chorus.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears.
And the sound is still nice and clear. The resonance is brighter than I'd prefer, but that's mostly just dysphoria talking. The placement of that resonance and the way the sound pings is right on point. Then as we get further into the chorus, there's a point where I pulled more chest up into the mix until I was basically no longer singing in mixed voice at all, just doing a full-on chest voice belt. And that happens right here on Held Your Hand.
And I held your hand through all of these years.
It might be hard for the ear to detect, but if you listen really closely, especially if you're wearing headphones, you'll notice a subtle difference in the sound where it becomes a little harder, crisper, less round, more brash. And even if you can't hear it, trust me, I could definitely feel it in my vocal tract. It was more of a strain to get those notes out, which is to be expected when you're using your chest voice at pitches that high. Those notes sit at A4 and B4 on the keyboard. And that shift from kind of a chest-heavy mixed voice to just chest voice happened purely because of muscle memory of how I used to sing this song as a teen. I did pull up less chest and bring it back into more of a mix on the next line though.
That you still have.
And at the end of that line, I even went back into that airy, breathy sound I'd used at the very beginning of the song, which I continued for the next line.
All of me.
That's pure head voice right there, by the way. I wasn't even using mixed voice anymore. And I think this line is a perfect illustration of why I hated using my head voice pre-T. There's nothing technically wrong with the way I sang that, but it sounds all kinds of wrong to my ears. First, I'm not wild about my entry into the word all.
All of me.
It's a harder onset versus the way Amy Lee's original is very soft, almost like a sigh or a breath into it.
All of me.
And I wish I had taken an approach more like that here. But what I really don't like about the way I sang this line is the word me. It's so bright that it honestly feels like nails on a chalkboard. The E sound tends to be the naturally brightest vowel sound, and it's always sort of been the bane of my existence for singing, but I find it especially unpleasant here. And if you're listening to this and thinking, what do you mean? It sounds fine, or why are you nitpicking this so hard? Welcome to the world of voice dysphoria. It's great. Now let's give ourselves a little palate cleanser by switching to the post-T version.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me.
Ah, that's more like it. So the biggest difference in how it felt to sing this chorus after T was that pre-T, I felt the need to sing it in the original key, which meant the chorus flirted with the vocal break between my chest and head registers and always felt like a stretch. But after my voice started dropping, I thought, if I've got to put this song in a different key anyway, I may as well choose a key that gives me a little more vocal leeway. So instead of choosing a key where the notes in the chorus flirted with my new vocal break, I chose a key that felt truly comfortable. So that meant when I sang the chorus with my chest voice, I didn't have to take it up too high. There was no strain, there was no squeezing out the sound to try to reach those notes. I could just be a lot more relaxed and let the sound come through. I made this recording right on the heels of having to change my chest voice singing technique as my vocal cords were getting thicker on T. If I tried to sing as hard or force as much air up through my vocal cords as I did in the past to make my voice sound heavier, I would end up cracking or having unwanted distortion. So I had no choice but to start singing lighter, singing with less air pressure, relaxing and letting the sound of my chest voice flow out instead of pushing it out. This song, especially the chorus, is a great example of that change in technique. And if you listen carefully, you can detect a couple of little things that give away the fact that I'm still new to this technique and haven't built up a lot of muscle memory for it yet. One is the little bit of rasp or huskiness that seeps through on the words cried-eyed.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears.
While the rest of the notes around it are clear. Another is how my vibrato gets a little more shaky and uneven as I pull back on the volume on the words still have.
You still have.
Little things like that show that I was so focused on not slipping back into old muscle memory and using too much air pressure again that I sometimes lost a bit of control in other areas. But I used that particular take of the line still have in the final edit because in this case, that little bit of shakiness or unevenness lent itself to the emotion behind the lyrics. Like, what would happen if you were mourning the loss of someone and lamenting the fact that they still had so much of a hold over you? You might cry, right? And what does crying do to your voice? Make it shaky. One last thing I'll note along those lines is how in the chorus I'm still mostly using volume and delivery more so than different vocal textures to enhance the dynamics and convey the emotions of the song. On that last line, all of me, I pulled the volume back to sing more softly, but I didn't go breathy with the sound.
All of me.
So that was the same approach I'd used in the first verse, continued all the way through the chorus. Now let's go back to the pre-T version for verse number 2.
You used to captivate me by your dreams. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase.
Alright, so just like in the first verse, this starts out softer, more breathy, and then builds to more of a full voice sound with a crescendo in volume going toward the chorus. But this verse had a bit more variety in how I use those vocal textures. I kind of slipped in and out more between a breathier sound and a fuller sound here.
Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams.
There was one other key difference between this verse and the first verse as well, which was how I sang the line, "These wounds won't seem to heal." In the first verse, like I mentioned earlier, I pulled the word heal back to that soft, breathy kind of sound.
These wounds won't seem to heal.
Whereas in the second verse, I sang it with a full voice sound.
These wounds won't seem to heal.
So that's a nice contrast in the delivery. Now let's see what I did with this verse in the post-T recording. You used to captivate me by your resonating light. Now I'm bound by the life you left behind. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. Alright, so here we've got several examples of how this more simple, smooth, clear style of singing in my chest voice allowed the emotions to take the spotlight and shine through. I placed some intentionally sharp consonants and harsh intakes of breath around that smooth, clear sound here. Resonating light. Here. Left behind. And here. Your face, it haunts. There's a tiny hint of a cry in the vocals right here. Your voice, it chased away. And the last note in that line has no vibrato, gets louder as it's sustained, and then breaks off at the end with another harsh breath. And then these lines leading up to the chorus have more oomph, more impact behind them than they did in the first verse. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. But that's not from me forcing more air pressure into the sound. If I had done that, my voice would have just gotten really strained and gravelly. But you can tell that the sound is still nice and clear. Instead, that extra power came from keeping my voice well supported and grounded in my core, increasing the volume into a crescendo, and then just putting as much emotional desperation as I could into the way I delivered the lines. Good stuff. Now let's move on to the next chorus and the bridge, starting with the pre-T version.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years, but you still all of me. I tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone, but though you're still with me, I've been alone all along.
Alright, so I was definitely pulling a lot more chest up into the mix here.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears.
Compared to the first chorus, there's so much chest in the mix here that it barely even qualifies as mixed voice anymore. It's like 90% chest belt. I did pull back into a more balanced mixed voice and then head voice here.
But you still
but everything up to that point was much more chesty. Then the one line that my dysphoria perceived as nails on a chalkboard in the first chorus,
all of me,
was even more grating this time around.
all of me, I tried so.
That's like teeth on a chalkboard or something. Once again, nothing technically wrong with it, it's just mixed voice rather than head voice. But I don't know, something about the brightness of it, especially on the word me, I just can't. Thankfully, that word gets overlapped by the start of the bridge, which comes in as a quiet mixed voice and then pulls in more chest and gets louder in volume as it goes along.
I tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone.
Then the next two lines are just a 100% all-out chest belt, at pitches where my chest voice never should have gone, but oh well.
But though you're still with me, I've been alone all along.
It's not terrible per se, but you can definitely hear the strain, especially on the words alone all along, because you've got an open vowel, the ah sound, which can already be harder to control, all the way at the very upper limit of my chest register. That part of the song goes to a C-sharp 5. So that line came out feeling very tight, sounding like a struggle, and really only having that ending vibrato as its saving grace. I could sort of get away with using my chest voice with that much air pressure at that high of a pitch when my vocal cords were thinner pre-T, but certainly not after. So let's see how I fared on this part of the song at 2 years and 10 months on T.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me. I tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone, but though you're still with me, I've been alone all along.
That's what I'm talking about. What a difference it makes when you're in a comfortable key that hits your vocal sweet spot, instead of a key that hits Amy Lee's vocal sweet spot and you're just trying to prove that you can do it too, am I right? In this key, I'm still about 2 or 3 semitones below the ceiling of where my chest voice has to break over into head. So naturally, I have more control over my chest voice and can use it without any strain. Plus, since I'm singing with such better technique and much less air pressure, the notes can just really ring. It still feels counterintuitive in my brain that I can sing lighter and get a much fuller, heavier sound thanks to T, but I love it. I want to compare a few areas of the chorus that always felt especially difficult pre-T, but felt and sounded a lot better after T. One is this line.
And I held your hand through all of these years.
That sounded fine, but every time I would sing it, I would always feel like I wasn't quite gonna make it. Like I was gonna run out of breath or waver or crack.
And I held your hand through all of these years.
Whereas there, the highest part of the line, your hand, felt secure and sounded rich and full and resonant. Another area is this line.
But though you're still with me.
That ending phrase in particular, still with me, is not only high in pitch but full of that closed E vowel sound that's always been my vocal nemesis. So trying to sing that and make it sound good was always difficult.
But though you're still with me.
But there, it's no issue at all. The notes sound powerful, and even that closed E vowel sound is nice and full and rich. And the last area is this line, which I already talked about a little.
I've been alone, all alone.
Compare that, which sounded almost as strained as it felt, to this. I've been alone, all alone. Which not only felt great to sing, but also sounded like the powerful climax this song actually deserves. Alright, now it's time to finish it out. Pre-T version first.
When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me.
And there we have it. So we started out in a full-on chest belt here, just like we left off at the end of the bridge. It doesn't sound quite as strained on the chorus anymore because that only goes up to B4 in pitch, not all the way up to C#5. But you could still hear how kind of hard and brash the notes sound in places, like right here,
Cried, I'd
or here,
scream, I'd,
or here.
and I held your hand through all of these years.
And that comes from a lot of that open ah vowel sound at high pitches, a lot of air pressure, and a lot of strain on my vocal cords, which produced a harder, more piercing sound. But I did pull back into mixed voice and then further into just head voice that got softer and breathier on this line,
You still have
which, setting any dysphoria aside, I can objectively admit is quite lovely. These head notes at the end, though,
all of me.
they're still way too bright for my taste, even though everything else about the way I sang them was fine. I do like how the sound gets softer and breathier every time I repeat the word me, almost like I'm fading away. That taps into the emotions of the song pretty well. Now let's hear how the post-T version ends. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me. We've got some really cool and interesting stuff to talk about that's different between the pre-T and the post-T versions here. So first things first, the chorus starts off strong and clear with that same nice, rich, full resonant sound that we had at the end of the bridge. And once again, that phrase, held your hand, that was always so tricky pre-T.
And I held your hand through all of these years.
Is easy and well controlled here.
And I held your hand through all of these years.
The one thing I found more difficult to navigate post-T than pre-T was this decrescendo.
But you still have.
Going from chest voice at full volume, but less air pressure than I was used to, and then pulling that back into a softer, breathier, mixed voice sound was really difficult to control. I recorded 6 takes of that line, and the one you heard was the only one that was remotely usable, because every other time I popped or cracked when I pulled my head voice into the mix. What I find most interesting here is the way the song ends, especially compared to the pre-T recording. First, we have a pained hiss of a breath into this line to really tug at your heartstrings.
All of me.
And mixed voice for these notes with a tone quality that gives me more gender euphoria than I can even say. Then we have this line that starts out in mixed voice and goes up into pure head on a little vocal flourish. And then finally, we close out with this very soft, very breathy head voice. I love that the changes in the sound of my head voice on T gave me so much more freedom and willingness to try different things with it here. It's pretty cool what you can do with your head voice when it no longer sounds like nails on a chalkboard. So, there we have it. 2 different versions of My Immortal, recorded almost 3 years apart. I hope you enjoyed this vocal analysis. I have some other pre versus post-T vocal analysis videos on the channel if you want to check those out. They are linked in the description. And if you have any analysis of your own, any thoughts to share about either version of My Immortal, then please share those in the comments because I would love to hear from you. You can also reach out to me on other social media. I'm GC Kinsey across all platforms. If you want to hear each of these recordings in full, I've also linked to those in the description. And while you're here, feel free to check out some of the other cool stuff I've got on my channel. I have playlists of all my pre and post-T voice recordings. I have playlists for 3 years worth of a project meticulously tracking my voice changes on T. I have cosplay music videos, cosplay tutorials, vlogs about my experiences as a queer person, and more. So make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything new. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all of your support. I hope you enjoyed that Evanescence blast from the past, and I will see you on the next one.